Hey everyone, it's Daniel here from etfs. Hope you're all doing well. So, interesting news, right? This is a little bit old news here, but I want to talk about it with you because it's relevant. It's relevant for, the place where probably you live and when it comes to the quantitative tightening cycle and the rates and yields and so on. But basically, Australia came out with a surprise, shocking rate hike. Did a 25 basis point rate hike, brought the cash rate up to 3.85%, I believe it is. Yep, 3.85%. And raising rates, shocking everyone. The consensus was they were not going to raise rates. They paused rates in April, but they came out and raised rates all of a sudden, and there was basically 9 out of 30 Bloomberg forecasters were projecting that there would be a rate hike, and the rest was not, right? The rest was on the consensus of no hike, right? And with this rate hike, the RBA basically came out and said that the board expects some further tightening of monetary policy may be required to ensure that inflation returns to target in a reasonable time frame, and will continue to pay close attention to developments in global economy, trends in household spending, and outlook for inflation and labor market. Now, it makes sense for Australia because as inflation is still elevated, you have a banking crisis in the US. And what do you do if you don't have a banking crisis in your area? You go ahead, you hike rates, right? May not be the best decision, but they decided to do that because they said, hey, we want to continue to keep things tight so we can fight inflation. And this is not just Australia. Australia is just one example, right? Same thing with Canada, right? The Bank of Canada has also paused rates. And just recently, Bank of Canada came out and said that, hey, we are thinking maybe we may raise rates. We're not sure. We're discussing about it, but we said we would pause, which they did, and we said we will still leave the door open for rate hikes if needed. And now they've come out and said that, hey, it's possible we could raise rates, but still, let's look at the CPI. Let's still look at the inflation report. So it's very interesting because when you got Australia, who was pausing, and the zero expectation, not zero, but very low expectation of a rate hike, low probabilities, but eventually got the surprise rate hike from the RBA, which caused basically rates and yields to go up higher, was a big shocker for all the traders and market participants there. So again, RBA basically said some further tightening of monetary policy may be required, and they will continue to keep things tight. The RBA also attributed the decision to inflation being still too high. Inflation is still too high, so that's why they decided to do this hike. And while it had passed its peak at 7%, it was still too high, and unit labor costs risking briskly, though there was no incremental information on unit labor costs in the months, and that the RBA downgraded its end 2023 CPI forecast to 4.5% from 4.8%, following weaker than expected first quarter 2023 CPI print during April, right? So even though they still expect for inflation to come down, they still feel that it's still elevated, it's still high, and they still need to do something about it. And it's going to be really interesting, right? Now you got to start thinking about the other central banks that are out there. And don't forget, right? I hear a lot from people saying that, hey, the central banks, they're not gonna hike rates more, especially in Canada, because it's over. Once they pause, it's considered a pivot. It's not a pivot. This is not a pivot. Okay, they can come back. Inflation can come back with a vengeance, right? If you look at the economics, if you look at the bullwhip effect, if you look at many other theories out there, you'll see that, hey, let's just make it very simple for you here. If you're a business owner and you see growth is declining rapidly, and you got to order less because less people are buying, and if somehow somewhere you get a spur of growth and people buy certain products and you're out of it, then yes, that contributes to the higher inflation. So inflation is still sticky. It's still there. Yes, it is coming down from its peak. It has a lot more room to still go lower to its target. In the US, the target area is 2%. Canada wants the same thing as well, although they may have a range and they may work in a range. But now you have, you know, this example here, Australia, where they just did a surprise rate hike. Then it's gonna be very interesting with Bank of Canada as well, right? Will they do the same thing as well and say, hey, we need to hike rates and because inflation is still not coming down? And also the U.S. Don't forget the U.S. as well. Can they continue their rate hike cycle? Can they continue to tighten more, be aggressive more, or is this the end? Will they change their mind? Will they flip-flop? We will find out. And if things are still good and inflation's still hot, their job, their mandate, let's not forget the mandate of the central bank is to fight inflation, right? And I'm talking about the US central bank, is to fight inflation and to keep unemployment rate low, to keep enough jobs out there in the economy, right? Same thing with many of the central banks around the world as well. Their job is there to keep inflation low. So they're not out there like the government saying that, hey, we're going to give you stimulus bills and this and that to fight off inflation. No, that contributes to inflation actually. So they have one job, they have one mandate to fight inflation. If that means hiking rates again, they will go ahead with it, right? So very interesting to see this from Australia. Let me know what you guys think in your areas, let me know where you're living. And the central banks there, like, do you think rates are going to go higher? They're going to stay higher for longer? You're going to see higher rates? Let me know what you guys think. Leave a comment below. Hit the like button, bell icon to be notified on the next video, and subscribe if you want more content like this. And I'll see you guys around. Cheers. Bye.